and welcome. My name is Gina Bryant, and I am the webinar facilitator for the Best and Brightest Companies to Work For. Before we begin, I have a few announcements. Today's broadcast is eligible for 1 hour of continuing education credit with SHRM and HRCI. In order to receive your credit, please fill out the survey from SurveyMonkey that will be emailed to you later this afternoon. Our broadcast today is being recorded and will be available to view on the Best and Brightest website next week. If you have any questions during this broadcast, please use the chat feature you see in the lower left-hand portion of your screen. We will have time at the end for any questions. Today's webinar is creating a work-from-home environment, guidelines for your company. Our presenter today is Amber Redmann, the CEO of Parasol Alliance. Amber Redmann from Parasol Alliance, a technology solutions company exclusively serving the senior living field, a company she founded in 2015. Ms. Redmann is an experienced information technology executive with over a decade of experience in the healthcare industry with specific expertise in long-term care. Possessing an in-depth knowledge of senior living processes, Ms. Redmann is an expert at implementing efficiencies specific to senior living technology solutions, a utilization of a technology analysis and strategic plan. Again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I would now like to turn it over to our presenter, Amber Redmann. Go ahead, Amber.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are. I'm in Chicago, so it's still morning for me. Thank you for taking time to attend our presentation today. Our company has been virtual since day one, which has served us well during these unprecedented times. Already being set up as a virtual workplace has allowed us to quickly pivot and focus on providing additional services in support of our clients. We hope to be able to share our knowledge, lessons learned, and expertise on how we have not only made working from home viable, but we have learned to excel and create an amazing culture for our staff. Our focus for today is to offer you an overview of how Parasol Alliance became an award-winning employer that grew from 1 employee to over 40 with clients and staff in multiple states in just 4 years, all while being virtual. Working virtually is ingrained in the fabric of our company. In today's webinar, while talking about how we have successfully integrated working from home into our culture, I'll also go over a bit about our founding story, how we developed our organizational processes, including mission and vision, and why we believe working this way provides value to our clients. We feel that creating our virtual culture framework and the resulting employee happiness has directly led to our success and our growth. I hope you will leave today's call with an understanding of what it takes to build a work-from-home corporate culture, which may take investment beyond the coming months, but also some tips and tools to get your team mobilized quickly and efficiently. Just to give a brief overview of our company, Parasol Alliance is a managed technology services company that exclusively serves the senior living industry. We help our clients make smart, strategic technology investments and effectively use technology to achieve their business objectives. We provide IT operations to our clients as well as strategic planning, engineering, project management, and business system support. Our company is 100% virtual. We do not have an office, and our staff also enjoy unlimited time off from their first day. We focus on hiring smart, capable leaders and instill a culture of accountability and open communication. We are laser focused on living our core values and serving our mission to bring strategy, innovation, and accountability to our clients' use of technology, which enables them to maximize profitability, growth, and success. Together, our mission serves as our beacon for how we make decisions as a company. Our values are leadership, expertise, teamwork, empathy, communication, and accountability. And these values are the moral compass that we live by. We measure ourselves against how we live our values in service to our clients, interaction with fellow team members, and how we contribute to the community at large. Parasol Alliance was founded in September of 2015. In just a few short years, we are proud and honored to have been awarded Best and Brightest Companies to Work For in several cities and nationally multiple years in a row. We have also been named as one of the top 501 managed services companies in the world 2 years in a row. We now employ over 40 people and serve clients in several states. While our staff work from home, many of our positions also go on site for support to our clients from 1 to 3 times a week. Our work-from-home culture has given us a strong foundation to set expectations and monitor them, including client interactions. Our client growth has been 100% organic through word-of-mouth referrals. We attribute a huge amount of our growth and success to our innovative culture, which reflects in how we partner with our clients and the environment that our staff work in. I want to provide a brief background on why we made the decision to be a virtual company. When I founded the organization almost 5 years ago, I had young children at the time, and they were often sick. I felt very strongly that as a working mother, you should not have to choose between sending your sick kid to daycare and your job. Before I started the company, I had tried to interview for several positions, and I found it really difficult to find a company that could understand this. I was told things in interviews like, "We have never interviewed a woman before," or "Are you only asking to work part-time?" I decided that it doesn't have to be this way. I am dedicated to my work, as most working mothers are, and I decided that if I wanted a work-life balance, then so must everyone else. This is why we started out as a work-from-home with unlimited time off company and have no plans to ever change this. Besides the obvious benefits of reduced expenses and overhead, creating a virtual environment with a strong framework and high accountability, as well as the right communication tools, has paid off as shown by our amazing culture. A few other benefits to mention: our staff do not have any time lost to commutes, intentional communication and trust, ability to hire the best regardless of geography, and increased employee happiness and loyalty. On our daily Zoom call this week, I actually asked my staff for some input for this webinar, and I asked them what do they enjoy most about working from home and any tips and tricks that helps them make it work. So some of their responses were: ability to work from home but also go on site to see clients in person is a good mix. There's no distractions. They have the ability to focus on their work, which leads to greater productivity. Being able to see each other every day on our Zoom calls. Ability to create and customize your own workspace at home. Ability to connect on a random channel over Slack. No time wasted on commutes back and forth each day. Several people commented that they were often spending over 2 hours a day commuting. Being able to eat healthy and cook lunch while at home and enjoy working outside when it's nice out. And of course, everyone's favorite, you don't have to wear pants. The key ways in which we have been successful in building our virtual company are by following these general guidelines that I'll talk about next. While you may be looking to implement the work-from-home culture quickly, if you have a good understanding of how the foundation is built, you'll be able to assess where you are in the process and determine which processes and tools you can expedite and where you may need to circle back to later and invest more planning in the future. The first step is to develop your framework. Think about how you will communicate, what tools you will use, what are the policies that you already have that you can apply or may need to be changed or added. Next, establish the culture and expectations. I will say this several times today, but I can't stress this enough. The most important decision you will make is communication. Having a workable communication plan in place both across the organization, teams, and employees is really essential to building trust. In addition to communication, you will need to review, create, or revise your policies to lay the groundwork and expectations for your culture. Lastly, accountability is what ties everything together. This is how you monitor outcomes to ensure your work-from-home culture is working for everyone. Now we'll take a closer look at each. The first thing to do is to reframe your thinking and reset your mind on how you think about working from home. Working from home is not the same thing as doing what you do in the office, but just doing it at home. There are critical differences, and how you think about them will help ensure your success. Start with a big picture. try and remove yourself momentarily from the crisis at hand and look upon your company to take assessment of where you stand from an operational framework standpoint. There are a few ways to develop or review your framework. At Parasol Alliance, we use the book Traction by Gino Wickman to create our operational framework. Principles in this book outline the entrepreneurial operating system and provide an abbreviated business plan to create a high-functioning, agile company. As working virtually is so ingrained into our fabric, I will briefly talk about how the concepts in this book contributed to creation of our organizational structure using the Traction book as a guideline. From the Traction book website, below is a brief summary of what the book guides you and your organization through. The first is vision, which is getting everyone 100% on the same page with where you are going and how to get there. Traction, which is instilling focus, discipline, and accountability throughout the organization. And also organizational health, which is helping leaders become more cohesive, functional, and healthy as a leadership team. You do not have to follow this book in particular. This is merely a resource for how we have successfully built and scaled our company. If nothing else, this is a consideration for where you might be in the process and something you may wish to come back to in the future. Using a resource like this to develop or measure your framework for how you approach setting your company vision, creating processes around service delivery and values, and how you can be intentional about creating the right environment for your employees, regardless if they are at the office or working remotely, is a good first start if you don't already have something in place or it needs review. You will want to ensure that you and your team are on the same page around company mission, vision, and processes while creating your work from home plan. After your leadership team has reframed your mindsets, you will be ready to build your framework. Start with identifying the key changes between working from home and working at the office. Also, identify any hybrid situations, such as conference calls, while some people may be in the office and some at home. Be ready to have a plan in place to address each area or situation. You want to try and cover as much as possible to avoid confusion and create efficiencies. These are some areas to think about when building your work from home framework. How will you handle different types of communication, such as meetings, calls, emails, instant messaging, etc.? What changes will occur in the systems you use? Or perhaps if you have paper-based systems, how might those processes change? How will you inspire joy and wellness in your employees? How will you create a sense of belonging and connectedness? How can you establish and build trust while granting flexibility at the same time? When considering these questions and building your framework, talk about your company values and your mission, perhaps now more than ever. Company values are there for a reason. They should guide how your employees act, communicate, respond, work together, and lead. It may feel like a small detail, but it's critical to establishing culture during upheaval and uncertainty. By communicating your company values in your work from home plan for your teams, you are establishing a reassuring confidence with your team that the company and the leaders remain on course. You can incorporate your values into your work from home plan in a few ways. You can tie process decisions to values. For example, at Parasol Alliance, our team meets every day via video call. This is tied to our value of teamwork. You can tie new systems that may have changed or been added to your values. For example, if you are now using a remote messaging tool such as Slack or Teams, you can tie the expectations of using these systems and their purpose to a value such as communication. Identify how your core values have guided and influenced any decision made to service delivery or other department or client interactions. It's also important to measure how well employees live by these values. At Parasol Alliance, every employee creates their own plan for demonstrating and improving how well they live our core values. We manage this through several ways. First, each position has a job description that clearly defines the mission of their role. We establish what metrics should be met at 30 days, 60 days, and then quarterly ongoing. The quarterly reviews include examples on how well staff demonstrated our values or the areas that they may need work on in the last quarter, what they are most proud of in the last quarter, what they plan to focus on or improve next quarter, the areas of growth that they would like to see. For example, we have 3 growth tracks: technical, management, or client-facing. And there's also metrics specific to each job position that clearly define the expectations for staff performance. Each metric is tied back to a company value. The quarterly check-in and engagement process is a time for self-guided reflection. It also gives the employee ongoing and consistent feedback on their performance, both in their own minds, how their managers see them, and measured against a set of metrics for their position. The 30 and 60-day check-ins and metrics also provide a clear picture of how the employee is performing against expectations. You may be wondering how this is related to working from home. Our staff engagement process includes metrics and expectations as to how employees will follow established guidelines on our values of teamwork, communication, empathy, leadership, and accountability. All of these values tie into our framework of working from home and identify how we not only do our work and provide service to our clients, but how we work together as a team. If our staff are not meeting the guidelines established within our framework, they will not be successfully working from home and providing effective services. This is how our values are tied directly into our work from home framework. Your company mission is equally important. When addressing staff on change processes or new decisions, again, reiterate how they support your company mission and purpose. As our company is remote, we are already providing services to our clients 60 to 70% remotely when the pandemic hit. However, since we still do go on site, one difficult decision we made was whether or not to continue to send our staff on site for tech support during COVID. Given that our clients are retirement communities and nursing homes, we struggled with sending our staff to a potentially high-risk situation. Our leadership team discussed this from several angles, and at the end of the day, we went back to our mission statement for guidance. Our mission is to support our clients and be the best partner that we can be. Therefore, in order to live our mission, we are continuing to go on site for support. This was communicated to our staff via a Zoom town hall and also via a memo. We spoke about the importance of our mission in communicating this decision. By clearly communicating how changed environments, working from home, and tough business decisions relate to your values and mission, this can give employees a sense of belonging and transparency. While this may not be the way that you work as a company forever, it will be the new norm for the months ahead. Through this process, you may find efficiencies and added benefits you'd not expected that will allow your company to be more agile in the future. So you can think about leveraging this opportunity to incorporate this new work style into your company fabric. Once you have established your mindset and created your framework tied to your values and mission, you can focus on creating and perpetuating your culture. For those of you who do not plan to work from home long term, this may be a temporary culture change, but even if it's short term, you will want to ensure your work can continue as normalized as possible without missing a beat. None of us are sure how long this will be the new normal. One of the core principles of creating our operational framework is process. Core processes are also part of the Traction book. Your business should have between 7 to 10 core processes, and these should be documented. In your work from home plan, start by creating a process and respective policy and guidelines for your teams, or reviewing your existing policies to see what might need to be added or changed when working virtually. At Parasol Alliance, we have created a document that's called the Culture File that outlines every process, procedure, and respective expectation for the core functions of our business, both internal and external. This provides clarity to employees around the company expectations for working from home. If working from home is new to your employees, you can start by outlining the equipment they will need, including purchasing guidelines. What are employees responsible for purchasing versus the company? The applications or software they are expected to utilize, guidelines for how to use these tools to communicate with clients and colleagues, where information should be stored and managed in your systems, as well as any other procedural changes you may have to implement to achieve effective business and client outcomes. Other policies to think about. What is the expectation on the hours that will be worked? How will you communicate changes to the schedule? How will you check in or meet together? Will video be on or off for video calls? For instant messaging tools, what is the expected response time, and what should you do if you don't get a response? What topics are allowed and which are off limits? What type of work or questions are allowed? If you currently have many paper-based processes, you may need to rethink how these can be translated to your systems for efficiency. You could consider a task force to discuss which systems or processes to modify or optimize. If your organization is new to working from home, you will have to consider your employees' skill set and if you will need to provide virtual training or resource guides to allow them to effectively complete their work. We will discuss the tools that we have found to be useful later on. If you have a hybrid environment with some staff at home and some still in the office or workplace, consider how these two groups will effectively interact. For example, if there is a conference call and some are in person and others are calling in, this may create feelings of disconnect. Try using a standardized platform for everyone. We've talked about creating a framework and culture, setting expectations, and what ties all of this together is accountability and monitoring outcomes. You will need a way to measure your framework and culture, especially process changes or new processes that have been added. You will want to be able to collect feedback in real time as much as possible so that you can be agile enough to pivot or refocus as needed. The more you build the new work from home lifestyle into your day-to-day, the more it becomes normalized and you can expect to hold staff accountable and see the outcomes as part of your day-to-day. This is where accountability comes in. There are a few areas in which you can measure accountability: process, values, and of course, communication. At Parasol Alliance, we have an accountability policy that outlines what happens when policies and processes and expectations are not met. By following this policy as a standard, our entire organization is more accountable and true to our values. Our accountability policy outlines which processes it applies to and what will happen if our policies and communication guidelines or processes are not followed over a period of time. When it comes to accountability, it's very helpful to identify your communication tools. And if you have more than one, have a policy on how each is used and where information should be stored so that there's clarity. For example, we have multiple systems, such as a ticketing system, which functions as a service request tracking for our clients, a project management tool, a CRM, and a knowledge base. We also use Slack, Zoom, Office 365, RingCentral, and Autotask Workplace for file shares, as well as a password safe. We have a policy for usage and guidelines for each of these systems, including what information belongs where and what we expect to be used in communication with all of these tools. Our employee performance metrics include correct usage of these tools. Another program we are working on implementing is a mentorship program. The purpose of the new program will be to continue to perpetuate our culture both to new hires and to employees who are looking to grow their careers and skill sets. This program will have two tracks. The first will be for new employees. New employees will be paired with a peer mentor for their first 30 to 45 days. The peer mentor will serve as a resource outside of management to provide a listening ear, offer tips and tricks, as well as another go-to resource. The second type of mentoring will be professional development focused. Based on the preferred career growth path of the employee, they may apply for mentorship after 6 months with the company. The employee will be paired with a mentor in their preferred area of growth. The mentor will help support them both in their personal, professional, and professional goals through a structured program. Another results-driven practice we have adopted is a clearly defined meeting schedule for all employees and teams, and this is integrated into our culture. As an example, our virtual meeting schedule is weekly leadership team meetings, monthly manager team meetings, weekly team meetings within each organizational team, weekly project status calls. Supervisors and employees meet one-on-one either weekly or biweekly. And we also have all staff monthly meetings to cover company updates and changes and updates on marketing and new business. These meetings are all held over Zoom. As previously mentioned, we have created performance metrics for each employee as defined in their quarterly review, as well as team metrics that are reported on a monthly basis to the whole company at the all-staff monthly meeting. By setting our expectations and then having tools in place to monitor how those expectations are met, employees have clear feedback every quarter on how they measure against our standards, as well as define meeting times to have open discussions. We've mentioned several times how critical communication is. One moment. Especially in times of major upheaval and uncertainty, your team will need to know that you have a plan. During this time, refocus the team on your core objectives and priorities, as previous priorities may need to take a back seat or are irrelevant given current circumstances. Communicate the core objectives and any temporary restructuring with your leadership team first. Ensure everyone is bought in and on the same page before you communicate with the full team. You should ask for support on all major decisions, even if everyone does not fully agree. You should show unity from leadership to staff at this time, now more than ever. You need everyone rowing in the same direction, and the only way to provide that is through structure and clarity. Now is also the time to over-communicate. If you haven't already, prepare a State of the Union address for your company to outline the 3 to 5 key objectives over the coming weeks, the teams that will support them, and who will take the lead. Discuss any changes or company impact openly and seek questions from staff. Staff will appreciate your transparency. I'd like to cover a few of the tools we have found to build positive culture and increase efficiency. We've mentioned several times how critical communication is. You likely have more than one communication tool, such as email, instant messaging, phone systems, and enterprise systems. As I mentioned previously, we have created a policy and online training video on how to set the usage, guidelines, and expectations for each system, as well as what information should reside there. In addition, we have a communication policy on how these tools should be used to communicate with each other and our clients. Having a written policy on how each communication tool works sets the expectations for the language, format, and tone, and this standardizes the usage of these systems and gives you something to measure against. At Parasol Alliance, we use Zoom extensively, and we also use RingCentral meetings. Seeing each other on meetings throughout the day is a great way to stay connected. We host a daily Zoom call, all-staff meeting, at the end of every day for the whole company, which is something we have always done, even as our company has grown. The call is just a quick 15-minute touch base at the end of each day. Seeing each other daily on video, even though we may only see each other in person a few times a year, helps reinforce our culture of teamwork. When we do get together at our biannual events, we feel like we already know each other well. On our daily calls, we cover each employee taking turns reporting on any major wins that they had for the day or the best part of their day, any challenges that they had for the day, any major project status updates or updates on work. They have a chance to give colleague recognition or shout out, and they also briefly touch on where they will be the next day or what their focus will be for the next day. Slack is another critical tool that we use in our virtual culture for real-time communication. Slack may be the #1 resource we have that brings employees together and keeps them feeling connected with its real-time functionality. There are other tools out there, such as Teams, that can accomplish the same thing. We have a Slack policy that outlines what Slack is used for, who has access to what, and how to communicate via Slack. For example, we ask that employees do not assign work to each other through Slack, but create a ticket in our ticketing system. In our company, Slack is intended for questions or a quick chat. We found it's too hard to keep track of work if it's requested via Slack. Slack is our primary mode of communication during business hours instead of email, so that we can get real-time responses. In addition, our policy for Slack includes usage of Slack after hours, what to do if you don't receive a response in Slack during business hours, and other guidelines. We have created segmented channels based on topic and function, and we also have a company news channel, a recognition channel where colleagues can say thank you to each other, and we also have a water cooler channel for random chat. Each team has their own private chat as well. Slack has many integrations you can explore for calendars, wellness, ice-breaking, and greeting new team members. For example, we use GreetBot, which automatically greets new employees when they join Slack. And we've also tried out icebreakers, which will answer questions, ask questions, and post responses so that everyone can get to know each other better. High Five is another integration we use to virtually congratulate or recognize someone on the team. Our team has used a cloud-based file share program for the last several years. This system maintains all of our company files in the cloud, which staff can also sync to their computer. Each file share is organized in the same manner, making it easy to locate information. As with our other systems, we have a policy on how the share is structured, who has access to what, and what information should be saved there versus other locations. If you have an on-premise file share solution, you can utilize VPN to connect to access your files or other remote tools. There are also programs that will sync your on-premise solution with the cloud for you. Our team is also in process of building an intranet. Our new intranet site will have a page for each team that states the mission of the team and their function in the organization, as well as each team member, a little bit about them and their go-to strengths. We will also publish our committee information for our committees that we have on wellness, community, and events. Whether your company has internal or external stakeholders, you will need to consider how you deliver services, product, and other interactions to others when you're working remotely. Parasol Alliance is a service-based organization, and we believe working virtually has increased our value to our clients. As our staff work from home, they are able to easily and quickly collaborate on supporting clients using the tools I just mentioned, specifically Slack, and our file shares and our enterprise ticketing system. We have had to ensure that we have extensive documentation on both our clients and our processes, which has brought clarity to the day-to-day work. When working virtually, there must not be any confusion or unknowns around how and what we do. This has led to much thought into the framework and processes that I've discussed today. We believe working virtually has made us stronger as a team, as the expectations are clearly defined and everyone is measured against the same standards. I'd like to talk about some best practices for maintaining employee motivation remotely and also during COVID. Everything we covered so far discusses how to build the framework and processes to successfully work from home, as well as how to monitor those outcomes. Employee motivation goes above the logistics of how to structure this new way of working to bring connectedness and cohesiveness together across your organization. These are some ideas for you to think of. You can encourage employees to stick to a normal work schedule as much as possible, even when they are at home. Encourage them to take lunch and breaks as needed. If you do need modification to your schedule, or if others on your team need modifications to their schedules because other people may be at the home with them, or if little ones are out of school, plan your day around when they'll be most productive. Get up early or tackle project work during naps or after bedtime. Another strategy that I use is to set aside time in your calendar, if you do need to work with kids or other things during the day, to avoid trying to stress out doing it all at once. It helps your peace of mind to know that you have dedicated time blocked off to what may be some of your many functions at home, as possibly both an employee and a teacher. Encourage your staff to speak with their supervisor about adjusting their schedule if necessary. Going back again to communication and setting expectations, as long as everyone is on the same page about schedules, this will greatly increase trust. Some other suggestions are to try and find a dedicated space to work with minimal distractions. Set up your workspace with all of your tools rather than seeing it as a temporary location. When you begin for the day, set daily goals by categories, a must-complete versus a to-do list. Give employees permission to take time for themselves throughout the day to maintain a balanced state of mind to combat burnout and fatigue. Encourage breaks outside, exercise, and ending work at the end of the day. Remember that this is impacting their professional and personal lives. You could consider hosting a virtual open forum for discussion and check-ins on how everyone is feeling. And you can ask your managers to check in with staff often on how they are feeling on their one-on-ones. Remember that everyone works differently, and this may be an adjustment for employees who have not worked remotely before. Again, communication is key. Be available. Nothing hurts the built-in trust working from home creates more than disappearing for a few hours. You can build trust by maintaining open communication on what you are working on, when you may need to take breaks, and what your priorities are for the day. Consider this an opportunity to leverage your company's wellness initiatives in a new way. Even if you can't take advantage of the same wellness benefits you may have had in a physical work environment, these are a few items you may consider doing. You could launch a virtual wellness program with monthly or weekly challenges, such as healthy eating, hydration, exercise, or sleep. Offer incentives and a forum for sharing and celebrating personal successes, maybe in a Slack channel. As part of that, you could launch a wellness app for all employees and their families to take advantage of the challenge. Consider the entire family. Share resources for families with children at home, craft projects, or potentially e-learning tools or sites, for example. You can share a weekly wellness tip or article in your email, intranet, or on your Slack. Consider hosting a virtual lunch hour to discuss the topic in more detail. As mentioned earlier, you can ask your managers to include a personal check-in during one-on-one meetings. You can also host a virtual workout session at lunch. If you're using Slack or Teams, you can look for wellness app integrations. Be prepared to be flexible if an employee needs to work outside of normal business hours to accomplish their job. Working from home under normal circumstances can allow for high levels of focus and productivity. However, if the entire family is home, consider how your employees are having to balance childcare, e-learning, with or without the support of a spouse or partner. At Parasol Alliance, we value celebrating each other and our wins. We practice this in several ways. As I mentioned earlier, on our daily call, each employee can share a colleague shout-out or celebrate a win for the day. We also have a recognition channel in Slack. In this channel, we post 5-star employee surveys from our clients and shout-outs to other staff for extra help with a project or achieving goals. We have a random Slack channel, which provides an outlet for water cooler chat, funny memes, quotes, random conversations, and general silliness to help bring smiles, laughter, and joy to our colleagues throughout the day. We publish an employee newsletter every month, which has employee spotlights and highlights of personal achievement and outlines highlights outside of work. On our monthly all-staff meeting, we start the meeting every month with everyone going around and saying thank yous to other people on the team. Everyone is required to thank another person or group of people for 3 specific things for living our values. At the end of the meeting, on our monthly meetings, employees also take turns sharing a monthly motivation, which is a brief video that highlights one of our core values at the close of the meeting. Some other ideas that we are working on or that you could consider would be a virtual book club. This could be focused on professional development or personal, or it could be rotation. Or maybe a virtual working lunch, streaming a 30-minute workout class with colleagues, or take Zoom on the go for a walk around the block after lunch with colleagues. Help your employees choose joy during this time. If you define your values, expectations, and build a framework in which to measure them, you can grow your organization while maintaining cultural integrity. And you can implement tools to mobilize your team quickly. Thank you for listening today, and we can now take questions.
Thank you, Amber. If anyone has questions that are in the participant area, could you please write them in the chat? Amber, one just popped up. Do your employees use their own personal cell phones, or do you provide a work phone?
That's a great question. We provide a monthly reimbursement for their personal phone, and we also provide a monthly reimbursement for internet. That's something we started doing this year because it became a law in Illinois to have to reimburse for work from home expenses. So we decided to expand it to all of our employees. They also have the option to claim it on their taxes, so we tell them it should be one or the other, and we have a policy around that.
Okay. Another question for you. How do you motivate unmotivated people?
Well, basically what we have done is we have built our framework, as I mentioned, that it's all completely intertwined. So our policies and our processes are all built around using our tools correctly and living our values correctly. And the expectation is that you'll be held to those standards. And if someone's not held to those standards or not meeting those standards, then we would follow our accountability policy, which would outline what we would do to work with them to try to get them to be motivated and get to the level that they should be.
Okay. Another question was, does your staff particularly work traditional hours?
They do. Our service desk is open from 7 to 5:30 Central Time. So they take shifts for those people who work the service desk. Otherwise, for everyone else, it's it's flexible. It's around 8 to 5, and then we do have people on call that are reimbursed for being on call during their week.
Okay. You offered some great ideas. Is there anything that you feel has a better success rate than anything else?
I think that what's made us the most successful is really standardizing what we do to every employee. So if there's, kind of going back to the question about unmotivated people, if there's somebody on the team who is not really following the same values or guidelines, everyone else knows that. And so by holding everyone accountable to the exact same standards, I think is really what's made us most successful, is having that consistency and having everybody be aware of that consistency so that they know that the people they're working with, they can have trust with them, they can know that they're going to do their job correctly, and that if someone's not doing their job correctly, that there'll be follow-up and repercussions for that.
Okay. Another question. What if you have a brick and mortar office that takes phone calls and you are working from home? Do you transfer the calls to a cell phone? How do you get a phone call to a working from home employee? And how do employees give out cell phone numbers to their customers?
Okay, so for the last question, we use RingCentral, which is a cloud-based phone system. And so you kind of have a couple of options. And this, I'm thinking more of our clients, because our clients are all brick and mortar buildings. And what we did when COVID started is we created a customized work from home plan for each of them that outlines how they would access email, VPN, file share, phone calls, et cetera, from home. So it's going to depend on what kind of phone system you have. Your phone system may have a soft phone app. That's what RingCentral has, so that you can install a soft phone application on your smartphone. And what that does, it'll allow you to call in and out from your work number from your cell phone, but it looks like it's coming from your work number. Again, it really depends on what kind of phone system you have, and usually you have to pay additional for that type of app. I have seen some phone companies are offering that for free right now. The other option would be to forward it. So if you have the ability to just forward the office line, the disadvantage of that is that if you call people back or call out from that, it's going to show your cell phone versus the company phone, which is why the soft phone app is nice.
Great,
so
thank
we
you.
don't, sorry, just to follow up, we don't give out cell phones because the RingCentral number will ring on their cell phone. So it's the same thing. They don't need their personal cell phones.
Okay. Is your staff salary or hourly?
Both. So we follow labor law guidelines. So our service desk staff need to be hourly. So they're hourly. We also have a program called Tech at Home, where we hire students that are part-time and they support the seniors with their technology needs. So for example, they'll help a senior set up a printer or an iPad or things like that. They're hourly as well. So we have a mix.
Great. Next question. How do you encourage self-care? Many of our team members are beginning to get burned out.
That's a hard one, and that's one I personally had to learn when I started the company. I think that normalizing your day as much as possible, getting in that mindset that you're not just doing what you do at the office at home, but you're actually, this is your workplace. It's easy to be distracted or to try to keep working past the end of the day. And so it's a good idea to really set what your priorities are for the day at the beginning and take brief breaks as needed. And then for me personally, I really try to be done by 5 o'clock every day. That's been really instrumental to me to avoid burnout. And I would say most of our employees are the same way. We're not really working crazy hours here. I mean, the people that are on call obviously have to work a little bit longer, but that's only twice a year that they're on call. So I think you have to have some self-discipline with that to really kind of separate yourself. That's why I had that slide about, I can't remember, do I work at home or do I live at work? Because you have to have that mindset where you can set your schedule, get done what you need to do, and then give yourself permission to stop at the end of the day.
Thank you. Next question. How do you help reduce feelings of isolation and anxiety?
Using the tools that I mentioned, Zoom and Slack, for us, I feel, and I think a lot of our staff, we feel really connected to each other. There's other tools besides Slack. There's Teams and there's other ones, but having that constant real-time chat all day long has really helped people feel connected, like they can reach out at any time and there's somebody there who's going to answer their question. And then doing the video calls, that's our whole company once a day, being able to see each other. I think that's the content of what we talk about on the call is not as valuable as just being able to see each other once a day. I think that really helps. And then any one-on-one meetings or team meetings, we also use video. So I think just that constant being able to reach out through Slack, communicate, get instant responses, and then being able to see each other throughout the day on video has helped reduce that feeling.
Thanks. Next question, which might be a little bit of what you already just answered. How do you purposely engage with your team to let them know they are not alone?
Yeah, I think that's kind of related to what I just said with the daily call. We have purposely structured our company so that no manager has more than, I think it's like 9 people reporting to them, because we want to have the managers frequently meet with their staff at least biweekly and their teams every week. Again, just having that schedule, the virtual meeting schedule with the framework of when you should meet, what are the guidelines for that, how frequently should it be. And then we actually we measure our management team on how they do that. Like if they're not meeting with their team every week or every other week, they're not going to meet their metrics for the quarter, which will directly affect their bonus. So, we really try to build that framework and then build the accountability into it with the quarterly check-ins to make sure that all those things are happening.
Great. Next question. How do you suggest I get our owner embrace some of these values? I have felt isolated at home.
That's a good question. I mean, each unique situation is different. And I realize some of the people on this call may not be able to be the decision makers on some of these things that I've talked about today. That's why I wanted to go over the framework of some of the ways we got to these processes, so you could encourage them to potentially read Traction, the book that I mentioned. There's also, we've used a lot of Patrick Lencioni books, which meeting him at the National Best and Brightest was the highlight of my year. I'm a reader. I like to read, but so if suggesting books doesn't work, maybe you can try to trial some of these things and say, let's just try it and see how it works and see if it works or not. And then if it doesn't, we could always, try something else. It's hard to sometimes enforce or try these new ideas without having that accountability.
Okay. It looks like we have one last question. How can we be flexible with employees that have kids at home?
So I have kids at home, and I have staff that have kids at home, and the people have different approaches. I think it depends on the age of the kids. So I think if your kids are young enough that they take naps, that would be great time for you to schedule, meetings that you may need to do or calls that you may need to do, or in that case, you may need to be, working a little bit more in the evening or in the morning to make up for it. Basically what I tell my staff is as long as you're getting your job done and you're, meeting the standards we set, I don't really care when you work. But they have to communicate. So our staff can't just disappear for a couple of hours. They have to let their manager know what's going on, where they're going to be, when they need time for. And that's the approach I take because my kids are a little bit older. So I have 2 different hours blocked off in my day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And for my peace of mind, I know that hour I can go sit with my kids and oversee their schoolwork. And I don't have to feel stressed out because I'm also supposed to be at a call and I'm supposed to be answering this email. So I think just really communicating what's going on with your schedule, what you need, and then showing that you will accomplish the work regardless of what the schedule might be is what builds that trust.
Great. Looks like that's all the questions that we have. Thank you, Amber, for all of your insight today. As a reminder to our participants, please fill out the survey that will be emailed to you later this afternoon. This will be the only way you'll be able to receive your 1-hour credit from SHRM or HRCI. Today's webinar was recorded. It will be available next week on the Best and Brightest website. You can also register for any of our upcoming webinars there as well. Thank you again, Amber. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Be safe and stay healthy. We are now concluding this call.